Nestled in the heart of Central Africa lies a land of breathtaking beauty, Burundi. Known for its rolling green hills, vibrant lakeside villages, and rich cultural heritage, this small East African nation is home to one of the oldest and deepest freshwater lakes in the world, Lake Tanganyika. Stretching over 670 kilometers and bordered by 4 countries, Burundi, Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Zambia, Lake Tanganyika hold secrets beneath its calm surface. The lake, fed by the winding Ruzizi River, is a lifeline for thousands of people. Its waters bring fish transport and daily sustenance. Families live by its shore, children play in its shallows, and fishermen cast their nets every dawn. But hidden behind this peaceful landscape is a chilling legend. A shadow moves beneath the waves, not a myth, not a ghost, but a living, breathing creature. His name is whispered in fear and awe, Gustave. He's said to be the largest Nile crocodile ever seen, over 6 meters long and weighing nearly a ton. Locals say he has haunted the waters of the Ruzizi River and Lake Tanganyika for decades and has claimed the lives of more than 300 people. Attempts to capture him have failed. Traps were avoided. Bullets could not kill him. Wounds could not stop him. And to this day, no one knows exactly where Gustave hides. This is not a fairy tale. This is a true story of nature's most dangerous predator, a monster that defies man and legend alike. Welcome to the story of Gustave the Killer of Tanganyika. At first glance, the Ruzizi River and the shores of Lake Tanganyika paint a picture of harmony, blue skies, rippling waters, and the hum of life all around. But beneath the mirrored surface of this African paradise, something vast and ancient stirs. For decades, villagers have spoken in hushed tones about a shadow that moves against the current, a monster too large to be real, too smart to be caught. They were not exaggerating. His name is Gustave, and his story is unlike any other in the natural world. Most Nile crocodiles in Central Africa grow to an impressive size, around 3 to 4 meters in length, weighing up to 500 kilograms. But Gustave is different. He defies all natural expectations. He's estimated to be over 6 meters long, nearly 20 feet, and he weighs more than 900 kilograms, close to 2,000 pounds. That's 3 times the size of an average male crocodile. He's not just big, he is colossal. Locals say when Gustave rises from the water, he looks like a drifting log the size of a boat. His body casts a shadow on the riverbanks. When he moves, the water parts, not from fear but from force. Entire fishing canoes have been overturned by his massive tail, not out of defense, but seemingly at will. Yet his size is not what makes him unforgettable. There's something else: scars. He carries the marks of war, 3 bullet wounds etched into the flanks of his armored body, and a deep, gaping wound on his right shoulder. No one knows where they came from. Some say military rifles fired during Burundi's civil war. Others whisper about desperate hunters who tried to bring him down and failed. But Gustave survived. The bullets tore his flesh, but not his will. Those scars are more than wounds. They are symbols, proof of battles fought and men who lost. When he was first observed in the 1990s, some scientists speculated that Gustave was close to 100 years old. They based this guess on his massive size and the scars that covered his body. But further examination led to a more conservative and perhaps more terrifying conclusion. He was likely around 60 years old. Why? Because he still had all of his teeth. In elderly crocodiles, tooth loss is common, but Gustave's jaws were intact, every tooth still there, which meant one thing: he was not an old beast near death. He was still growing, still thriving, still hunting, and if he was 60 in the 1990s, he may well be alive today. The earliest confirmed reports of Gustave date back to 1987. That year, a series of violent crocodile attacks began to emerge around the northern shores of Lake Tanganyika and along the Ruzizi River. At first, no one knew what to make of it. People disappeared from the riverbanks. Fishermen failed to return. Bodies were never recovered or were found torn and broken in ways that seemed unnatural even for crocodile attacks. Then came the sightings. Frightened villagers began describing a crocodile larger than any they had ever seen. They spoke of his broad head, of the strange scars on his side, and of the terrifying speed with which he struck. This was not an ordinary animal. This was something else, something worse. It was the French-born herpetologist Patrice Fay who first attempted to bring science into the mystery. In the late 1990s, after hearing dozens of local stories and personally observing the creature, Fay named him Gustave, a name that would soon echo in fear across the region. He spent over a decade tracking Gustave, trying to study his movements, his behavior, and most of all, to prove his existence to the world. With the help of National Geographic, Fay led an ambitious expedition in 2002, documented in the film Capturing the Killer Croc. Their goal, to trap Gustave and confirm his size and identity. By the early 2000s, Gustave had earned a name whispered in every household near the river: the man-eater. Local accounts blamed him for more than 300 human deaths. While it's difficult to verify the exact number, the fear was and remains very real. He was seen stalking the riverbanks, especially during rainy seasons when flooding pushed people closer to the water. Survivors tell of friends and relatives dragged under without warning. No growl, no splash, just silence. And then, red. Despite multiple attempts by hunters, military forces, and scientists, Gustave was never captured. He seemed to vanish at will, moving through reeds, diving deep into the lake's abyss, sometimes disappearing for months or even years. But every time the people began to forget, he returned, and every return was marked by tragedy. What made Gustave so dangerous wasn't only his strength or size, it was his behavior. Crocodiles usually attack out of hunger or territorial defense, but many reported that Gustave often left his victims uneaten. This baffled scientists. Was he killing for sport? For dominance? Was this the instinct of an old injured predator, no longer able to chase agile prey, so he turned to humans? Or had he learned after years of being hunted that humans were his enemy? In truth, no one knows. What is certain is that Gustave was unlike any crocodile ever studied. An apex predator that operated with patience, intelligence, and unpredictability. A living legend shaped by blood and myth. To understand why Gustave is feared not only as a predator, but as a legend of horror, we must go beyond his size and examine what he has done. Stories of his attacks are not merely rumors passed from one generation to the next. They are testimonies from grieving families, terrified survivors, and entire villages forced to reshape their lives around the possibility of death from below. Over the years, Gustave has been blamed for the deaths of between 200 to 300 people, making him potentially the most lethal crocodile ever recorded in human history. His attacks were often swift and devastating, leaving behind little more than shattered canoes or torn clothing found along the banks. However, modern estimates suggest that this number might be exaggerated. Some researchers believe the true figure may be closer to 60 confirmed deaths or fewer. Yet, even at the lower end, the pattern of his attacks, their frequency, and the psychological impact they left behind are undeniable. In a region where crocodile attacks are not rare, Gustave stands apart. Villagers don't speak of him in the same way they do other crocodiles. Where most incidents are treated as unfortunate but natural occurrences, Gustave's presence triggers fear bordering on superstition. People lock their doors at night not to keep thieves out, but because they say Gustave can sense when someone is near the water. It isn't just that he kills, it's how he kills. Over the years, Gustave has been blamed for the deaths of between 200 to 300 people, making him potentially the most lethal crocodile ever recorded in human history. His attacks were often swift and devastating, leaving behind little more than shattered canoes or torn clothing found along the banks. However, modern estimates suggest that this number might be exaggerated. Some researchers believe the true figure may be closer to 60 confirmed deaths or fewer. Yet even at the lower end, the pattern of his attacks, their frequency, and the psychological impact they left behind are undeniable. In a region where crocodile attacks are not rare, Gustave stands apart. Villagers don't speak of him in the same way they do other crocodiles, where most incidents are treated as unfortunate but natural occurrences. Gustave's presence triggers fear bordering on superstition. People lock their doors at night not to keep thieves out, but because they say Gustave can sense when someone is near the water. It isn't just that he kills, it's how he kills. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of Gustave's behavior is that he often does not eat his victims. Multiple eyewitness reports and field studies have described scenes where the victims were dragged into the water, killed violently, and then left behind. He doesn't consume the bodies. This detail is particularly disturbing to scientists because it suggests he's not killing out of hunger. Unlike most predators who hunt because they need to eat, Gustave may be killing for other reasons. Territorial aggression dominates behavior. Some even speculate psychological trauma, likening his attacks to those of a rogue elephant or a serial killer in the animal world. One researcher put it this way: most predators follow a basic biological script: stalk, kill, eat. Gustave follows a different script: stalk, kill, vanish. This abnormal pattern has stumped wildlife experts. There is no known case of another wild crocodile consistently exhibiting such behavior. Gustave's actions are not just terrifying, they are anomalous. At nearly 2,000 pounds, Gustave's massive size is both his strength and his limitation. Instead, Gustave targets larger and slower animals: buffalo, antelope, warthogs, and, most tragically, humans. He is simply too large to move quickly in shallow water or to dart at fish like smaller crocodiles. Instead, Gustave targets larger and slower animals: buffalo, antelope, warthogs, and, most tragically, humans. His preferred hunting grounds are muddy riverbanks, shallow stretches near villages, and areas where people wade into the water to wash clothes, fetch water, or fish. In these places, Gustave has all the advantage he needs. He's nearly invisible until it's too late. Several eyewitnesses recall seeing a powerful sweep of water, followed by a scream and silence. One fisherman described how he saw a wave surge unnaturally near his canoe and then realized it was Gustave's back rising beneath the surface. His friend, who was just behind him, never surfaced again. Local villagers and researchers alike have documented a disturbing technique attributed to Gustave, something never seen in typical crocodile hunting behavior. It involves using his tail to splash or slap water toward fishermen, creating sudden turbulence that either capsizes small boats or knocks people into the water. One young man, a survivor of such an encounter, recounted, "He didn't come from the front. The water beside us exploded. I turned and the boat was already turning over. My brother was gone before we hit the surface." This technique suggests a high level of spatial awareness and intelligence, traits that, while present in crocodiles, generally seem magnified in Gustave. He doesn't just ambush, he manipulates the environment, like a predator who has learned not just to hunt but to outthink. What makes Gustave's reign of terror especially chilling is not just who he attacks, but where he attacks. Unlike many large predators who stay away from populated areas, Gustave's range has extended into the outskirts of Bujumbura, the former capital of Burundi and the country's largest city. Reports indicate he has been seen near busy beaches, marketplaces, and riverside paths. In one chilling account, a child was taken just a few meters from a crowded community water pump. Witnesses described seeing the water part, then a flash of scaly hide, and then nothing. Authorities have tried to warn people to keep them away from the water, but life in Burundi is tied to the river. The water is everything for cooking, drinking, bathing trade. For many, there's no choice. And Gustave knows this. It is in these moments at dawn, when the mist clings to the river, or at dusk, when women gather to wash clothes, that he waits. Not always, but often enough. The true terror of Gustave is not his size. It is his unpredictability. He does not hunt in patterns. He does not follow seasons. He has been seen in two places over 50 kilometers apart in a matter of days. In fact, researchers tracking his movement concluded that his hunting range stretches over 100 kilometers from the northern banks of Lake Tanganyika to deep inland pockets of the Ruzizi River. No crocodile in the region has shown such a broad territory. This means one terrifying truth for the people of Burundi: there is nowhere near the water that is truly safe. They say you don't see Gustave before he strikes. You see the water ripple, maybe a log shift, maybe nothing at all. Then he is there, and then he is gone. In the village of Gatumba, an old fisherman named Caleb once shared his story with a French documentarian.
He took my nephew. I was only meters away. I heard the splash turned, and all I saw was blood in the foam. I dived in with a spear, but there was nothing. Just bubbles. Just silence.
Others refuse to speak his name, fearing it gives him power. A local woman, Marie Claire, who lost her son in 2001, said,
"He is not an animal anymore. He is something cursed. We built a fence by the water. He broke it. My son was playing near the reeds. We found only his shirt."
Gustave's attacks have left not only scars on bodies, but deep wounds in communities. Entire villages have changed their routines. Some have moved further from the shore, others have stopped fishing altogether. Children are taught never play near the water. Women no longer bathe in the river unless in large groups. Even then, they watch the ripples closely. The Burundian people do not just live beside a lake. They live beside a predator, and every shadow on the water reminds them that he may return. In 2004, the American television network PBS aired a groundbreaking documentary titled Capturing the Killer Croc. At its center was a French herpetologist named Patrice Fay, who had dedicated years of his life to tracking and understanding Gustave. Driven by both scientific curiosity and a deep concern for the people of Burundi, Fay teamed up with a film crew and a group of local assistants to attempt what no one had ever done: trap the beast. The plan was audacious. They constructed a colossal steel trap, weighing more than 1 ton and stretching over 9 meters 30 feet in length. It was engineered to withstand the brute strength of a creature that could potentially weigh over 900 kilograms. The trap had a spring-loaded door designed to shut instantly once anything of considerable mass stepped inside. The team set the trap along Gustave's known hunting grounds, baiting it with rotting beef carcasses, goat entrails, and eventually, in a desperate move, live goats tied inside a small cage. To monitor activity overnight, they placed infrared motion-sensing cameras nearby, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary predator entering the trap. But Gustave never did. Instead, the creature showed the cunning of a battlefield general and the patience of a hunter. Centuries old, days turned into weeks. The bait rotted in the sun, drawing swarms of insects and vultures, but not the beast they sought. Gustave, it seemed, was either too intelligent, too cautious, or simply too unpredictable. Then, one stormy night, an incident occurred that would only deepen the myth. The team had tied a live goat inside the trap, with an infrared camera positioned perfectly to capture any action. That night, a violent thunderstorm struck. Winds tore through the forest. Heavy rains lashed the ground. The river swelled past its banks. By dawn, the trap had partially flooded. The camera was found damaged, the goat gone, and the trapdoor slightly ajar. There was no blood, no drag marks, no camera footage, just the haunting possibility that Gustave had entered and escaped, leaving nothing but more questions in his wake. Over the years, countless attempts were made to stop Gustave. Local hunters, fishermen, even soldiers. They tracked him, they fired at him, they tried to kill him. But Gustave did not die. At least 3 bullet wounds and a deep gash on his right shoulder tell the tale of men who tried and failed. No one knows exactly who fired those shots, but the scars remain, silent witnesses to a monster's battle with man. In the nearby villages, whispers grew darker. Some claimed that rocket-propelled grenades RPGs had been fired at the Crocodile. Others believed the government tried to poison the river or even set explosives in key crossing points. None of these stories were ever confirmed, but the fact remained. Gustave survived, and perhaps more terrifyingly, he learned. The legend grew. Villagers spoke in hushed tones of the things they'd seen, of Gustave dragging entire cattle into the river, of children who vanished in the reeds, of families who fled their homes after a sighting, and of course, of warriors who faced the crocodile and never returned. Each failed attempt to catch or kill Gustave only amplified his mythos. He was no longer just a predator. He was the untouchable, the invincible, the ghost in the water. In time, the people of Burundi stopped speaking of him in biological terms. They began to describe him in spiritual ones. Some believed Gustave was a cursed soul, the reincarnation of a fallen warrior. Others whispered he was sent by the ancestors, a warning to those who polluted or disrespected the river. Children were taught never to speak his name at night for fear it might call him forth. Even Patrice Faye, the scientist who had tracked Gustave for years, began to question what he once believed. He's not just a crocodile, Faye once said in an interview. He is something more. Eventually, Faye left the region. The steel trap, once a symbol of hope, was never used again. Now it sits abandoned on the riverbank, rusting, overgrown with vines, a quiet monument to human ambition and the limits of control. Each failed attempt to catch or kill Gustave only amplified his mythos. He was no longer just a predator. He was the untouchable, the invincible, the ghost in the water. In the villages along the Ruzizi River, people no longer spoke of him as just an animal. They spoke of a spirit, a curse, a warning sent by the ancestors. Some claimed he was the soul of a warrior who died in war, reincarnated as wrath itself. Others whispered he appeared when the river was disrespected, when the balance was broken. At night, parents told children, "Do not speak his name. It might call him." Even Patrice Faye, the scientist who devoted years to tracking Gustave, began to question what he knew. He is not just a crocodile, Faye admitted in an interview. He is something more. In the end, Faye left the river. The massive steel trap he built was never used again. Now it sits by the water, rusting, overgrown and silent, a forgotten monument to human ambition and the limits of control. But Gustave's legend did not rust. It grew, because what makes Gustave so terrifying, so compelling, is not just his size or his appetite or his cunning. It is this: he became a mirror, a reflection of our obsession with control, and nature's refusal to be controlled. The failure to catch him was not merely technical, it was philosophical. It challenged the myth we tell ourselves, that with enough science, enough cameras, enough traps, we can master every mystery. But Gustave, he is the exception, the crack in our armor of certainty, and perhaps that is what truly haunts us. Not that Gustave killed, but that he endured. That in a world paved in concrete, lit by screens, surveilled by satellites, there is still a shadow in the water that no one can tame. The last confirmed sighting of Gustave came in 2015. A local fisherman reported seeing the massive crocodile drag an antelope into the water near the banks of the Ruzizi River. It was dusk, and he described the moment as watching a tree trunk come alive. The ripples faded quickly, and just like that, Gustave disappeared again as if swallowed by the river itself. Then came the rumors. In 2019, whispers spread through the fishing villages and online forums Gustave was dead. Some claimed he had been killed by soldiers, others insisted it was poachers. There were even stories of a local warlord who hunted him with explosives. But none of these stories came with proof. No photos, no carcass, no official report. Only words carried on the wind. Patrice Faye, the man who had spent years studying and trying to capture Gustave, expressed deep skepticism. In interviews, he said he had heard the rumors too, but without evidence, Gustave remains alive in both possibility and legend. He added that even if Gustave had died, the crocodile's legacy would outlive his body. And that's where the story turns from terror into myth. Gustave became more than just a crocodile. To the people of Burundi, he was both curse and creature, a shadow in the water and a test of fate. For some, he was nature's revenge, a spirit of balance against human overreach. For others, he was simply an animal, born too big, too clever, and too untouchable. His reputation reached far beyond the lakes and rivers of Africa. In 2007, Hollywood released a thriller titled Primeval, inspired by the legend of Gustave. Though the film took many creative liberties transforming the crocodile into a near-supernatural killer, The seed of the story was undeniably his. This helped introduce the name Gustave to a global audience and sparked new interest in crocodile behavior conservation and human-wildlife conflict. Even today, researchers continue to reference Gustave when discussing apex predators and human safety in wildlife regions. His behavior defied simple categorization. He was both predator and survivor, elusive, yet visible, mythical, yet real. Many scientists believe that his story underscores how little we truly know about ancient creatures like the Nile crocodile, especially those who live far from constant observation. More importantly, Gustave became a symbol, a reminder that despite all our technology and power, there are still forces in nature we cannot control, cannot tame, and may never fully understand. Whether Gustave is still out there, silently gliding beneath the water, or whether he died years ago in a place no one will ever find, one truth remains. His shadow is larger than his body. He haunts not only the rivers of Burundi, but also the imagination of a world that loves monsters, especially the kind that might still be real. Gustave is more than just a crocodile. He is a legend, a living myth forged in the muddy waters of Lake Tanganyika and the shadowy banks of the Ruzizi River. Over the years, his name has come to represent the primal fear and awe that nature can inspire in the human heart. He was not just massive in size, but enormous in impact, blamed for the deaths of over 300 people, evading every attempt at capture, and leaving behind a trail of mystery that no man could solve. Despite multiple efforts by scientists, hunters, and documentary filmmakers, Gustave remained untouchable. His size, his intelligence, his survival instinct placed him above any predator in the region. Even now, years after his last confirmed sighting, his legacy endures. Whether he died in silence or still lurks beneath the surface, Gustave has become a symbol of nature's untamed power and of how little we truly understand about the wild. In the end, Gustave challenges us to confront a haunting question. In an age of satellites and science, could there still be monsters out there, hiding in plain sight, watching, waiting? Perhaps Gustave was never just one crocodile. Perhaps he is a reminder that some legends refuse to die,